The way a microwave works is it shoots your food with microwaves at a very specific frequency, which will vibrate the water, which will release energy as heat, which heats up the food. Right. So the magnetron makes the microwaves, but you don't want the magnetron in the microwave cavity where your food is, because if you get oil or food crumbs in that means you're going to have a fire. So instead what they do is they attach a waveguide to the magnetron, so the microwaves get made and then they get trapped in the waveguide and they travel to the open cavity of your microwave. And sometimes there's a little fan there that's made of metal, so when the microwaves hit it, they kind of bounce around in all directions in the microwave, heating your food evenly. But if you open up your microwave, you'll see like a little plate that's made of mica, and this allows the microwaves to come right out. So the waveguide acts just like a talk tube, but for microwaves, and it pushes the microwaves into your like microwave cavity to heat your food. Number 8, solar cookers. And I didn't realize I was talking about food again, but I really like these. These are just parabolic mirrors. They catch the light in all direction, and then the mirror is shaped so that the light is focused on a certain point. So if it's an 85-degree day, it's pretty hot, but it's not hot enough to like cook a soup. So what you do is you put your pot inside this mirror, the light is focused onto the pot, and it can heat your pot to very high temperatures. Like you could bake a bread in one of these things, get it up to 550. I really like this idea as a way to cook because it's totally free, right? Like mirrors work for free. You don't need to power those bad boys. So you take the light that's going to be there anyway and you just focus it onto your little cook pot and it works. It's beautiful. Of course, harnessing the power of the sun can be difficult because sometimes it's cloudy, or maybe you don't get as much daylight in certain places. But I do think it's really interesting to be aware of these things, just in case, you know, like societal collapse and you can't power your traditional oven. You could just make a solar oven. That's kind of fun. But also, these things kind of work like death rays. You've probably seen a cartoon where the kid who's supposed to be evil is like taking one of those glasses and just popping to death the ants. There's this really fun historical story where Archimedes did this in the Battle of Syracuse. He has all these soldiers standing on the coast with mirrors, and he's like, great, we'll all point the light at the sail of the ship and they'll catch on fire. Haha, they can't come fight us if they're dying of fire and drowning in the ocean. And I really like this story as like harnessing the sun for a weapon. That's kind of fun, but also because this story is one of the most debunked stories in history. Like here I am, a modern day YouTuber debunking fluoride haters. In the 1600s you had Descartes being like, I don't think this would work. Archimedes is a liar, building little models and being like, this doesn't make sense. And really, Archimedes didn't even talk about this. It was Plutarch, that one historian guy, but he's like 200 years after Archimedes, so how is this even a debate? But really, it's a debate because it sounds really cool. It seems like it would kind of work. We've all seen a solar cooker. It could probably work and it sounds cool, right? But of course the debate continues, and Mythbusters did it. Actually, they did it twice. The first time they were like, LOL, absolutely not. And then this group of college students did it for like a little project and they were like, haha, we actually did it. So they did it again and it didn't work again. It like just requires too many things to be in perfect conditions. Here's a little clip.
All to aim your beams at that black sun and keep them as steady as possible. Are you ready? We are doing this for Syracuse in 3, 2, 1.
If this is a real war, you just lost, because I got a whole bunch of you guys, and you didn't get one of me.
I think you're right.
Man, do I miss Mythbusters. That was such a good show. Is there a science show like that exists? What app should I get to watch good science shows? What replaced Mythbusters as like a really fun like engineering show? I remember like a solid Friday night for me would be watching a Mythbusters or a How It's Made and just like enjoying watching engineering on TV. I feel like we don't have that anymore. That sucks. Number 7, the triboelectric effect. So the triboelectric effect is when you can rub two materials together and exchange charge. It's responsible for the vast majority of like static electricity, although the only reason I say vast majority and not all is because this is the internet and there's like one other way to do it, but like whatever. There's this great demo on the University of Colorado Education Physics website where you have John Travolta like rubbing his foot on carpet and the charges build up and then he touches a doorknob. The triboelectric effect is great to demo if you're trying to show that charges exist, that subatomic particles are like real things, and that's why I like it so much. But for me personally, I have this very like formative experience in my like educator career where I was a sophomore in college, and so I had only had like one physics class, and I was doing a demo type thing for the chemistry club at an elementary school, and my job was to have the Van de Graaff generator, and these groups of like 5 fourth graders would come, and I would just pick the one with the longest hair and make the hair stand up and be like, what do you think is happening? You know, that standard demo. So I get the first group of kids and I pick the boy, it's the boy with the longest hair, and nothing happens. And I'm like, oh no. And so I go find the professor and I'm like, nothing's happening. And he's like, oh, it's because it's humid today. Like in Rowan County, Kentucky, it's Appalachia. It's just a rainforest, right? It's super humid. So he was prepared for this and he had a hairdryer. And I took like the ball off and like you open it and there's like a belt. And the belt is the thing that moves the charges to your little ball. So he was like, just heat this up until the water has evaporated off of it and this thing will totally work. So I told the kids to move to the next station and come back around and we would get to do it later. And then after that, because I got rid of all the water on the belt, it worked perfectly and I did the little demo. And then the group of kids comes back and the little boy with long hair comes up and he sticks his hand on and his hair stands up and I'm like, what do you think is happening? And this other little boy who's probably, this was 12 years ago, so this kid is probably like a professional scientist now or something, and he was just like, well, it has something to do with heat. And I was like, huh, why would you think it? It's not too hot today, and there's electricity coming through it. And I was like, hey, is it hot? To the little boy touching it, and he was like, no. And he was like, it has to be heat. And I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, I saw you using the hairdryer on it. Like, I saw you blow drying it. You heated it up to do this, right? So maybe it's like that is hotter than the hair. And I was like, wow. He taught me a very important lesson, which is that if you do a physics demo and it fails, you can't just do the demo again and be like, see, physics. You have to explain why it failed. And in this case, the triboelectric effect is dependent on not only the materials but also the humidity, because if you have water in the air, it's gonna break your little circuit. Whatever is moving charge across it, it is going to be broken by the water molecule, which is conductive, right? So you have to dry the little belt to make this thing work. It's not about heat so much as how much water is in the air. Number 6, granular convection. So this one is one of my favorite things to talk about. It's because I'm super cool and fun.